Hey everybody, got a video here for you today, and we are going to go down to South Florida on the west side. We are going down to Estero Bay, and this is called Mound Key. A long time ago, this was just a flat mangrove island, but maybe a couple thousand years of occupation has built up two big mounds here, and this was capital to an ancient king. But this is called Mound Key, and really kind of undistinctive, but then if you really look at it and examine this place, well, this place was of the highest importance, maybe 1,000, 2,000 years ago, to the Calusa tribe. Now, what makes this place fascinating is originally, about 2,000 years ago, or I'm thinking maybe a little farther back in history, this place was just a tiny little island like this, and then this place was built by man. This is a man-made island built with seashells and clay material just packed together, millions and millions of them. That's pretty remarkable. I will leave a few links below. This is Mother Nature Network. It says, native people built seashell islands off of Florida long before modern countries like China and Dubai began making artificial islands. The Calusa people built a kingdom on seashells. And here's some LiDAR imaging. And you see here there was a canal going through here. Now it is just covered with sand, but this island was made of seashells, millions and millions of them, built up over time, and there was a main mound here. It says artificial islands may seem like a modern oddity devised by China to claim territory or Dubai to lure tourists, but people have been building them for centuries, using a mix of rocks and other materials to make new land rise from the sea. And I have featured places like Nan Madol and Porvizhin in Siberia, where people were making artificial islands. Well, it appears right in Estero Bay in southwestern Florida 2,000 years ago, the culture was making some artificial islands out of seashells. One interesting example lies off southwest Florida, where the Calusa, Native American people who once dominated the area, used hundreds of millions of seashells to create an island city near today's Fort Myers Beach. It was one of many fishing villages the Calusa built, but it grew into a major political hub, spanning 125 acres, rising 30 feet high, and housing an estimated 1,000 people. Now known as Mound Key, it served as the capital of the Calusa Kingdom when Spanish explorers first arrived here in 1513. Calusa warriors eventually chased off the invaders, but conquistadors had already introduced diseases for which the native people had no immunity. Their society eventually came to an end around 1750, and the last of the Calusa went down to Cuba. I guess that is the story. But here you see LiDAR imaging. This massive island, it's about a mile long, and it's artificially made out of millions of seashells. And there was a canal going through, and there was also some arcs. Here is kind of a topographical map of the artificial island made out of seashells. Here you see it has arcs coming out this way, and then over time and sedimentation and probably a bunch of hurricanes, this is what it looks like today. Here is how the island looked today. There was a canal cutting right through it. There was large mounds. There was earthworks built up in kind of like arc fashion. But let's take a look at what this looked like. Here's what it looked like. Earthworks, arcs, canal, main mound here, another one here, and I think there's one down here. But then over time and history and time, this is what it looks like today. Time and growth, the canal totally covered up. The mounds and everything totally covered up by vegetation, pretty much. This is what it looks like today. It says Mound Key is rich in early Florida history. The island was developed over 2,000 years of the Calusa Indian civilization. The site likely began as a flat, mangrove-lined oyster bar that barely rose above the shallow waters of Estero Bay. Located in the center of an estuary, food was an easy find. As the native population grew, the remains of their food were collected and heaped into middens. Mound Key is believed to have been the cultural center for the Calusa. They had their first encounters with Europeans in the early 1500s when the Spaniards were exploring the Caribbean and the peninsula of Florida. The first recorded contact with the Calusa was in 1513 when Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon landed in the area. Why is Mound Key so important? There are dozens of islands in Estero Bay, and from the water they pretty well all look the same. There are clear signs of human intervention indicated by the white spots and the straight lines present on Mound Key. You say straight lines? Well, I'm going to show you those in a second. Fact is that this was once the city of Calusa, the capital of the Calusa nation, and home to the Calusa king. Imagine that, in a part of the state where history seems almost an afterthought to the natural attractions and great weather that attract millions of visitors a year, there is a remnants of an ancient and almost forgotten kingdom, literally right in the middle of it all. Who wouldn't want to visit this place of mystery and discover a vanished civilization? Who wouldn't want to visit here? Well, some of you people have said, why don't you go visit some of these places? I guess you have to rent kayaks from the state park to get out here. But in November, I'm going to be staying right here while I visit my father. A little 4-day trip. I just might paddle out here. Now, when the Spanish came upon these people in the early 1500s, some of them didn't survive for over 5 minutes once they landed. But here is a weapon made out of shark teeth. I'm not sure if this is a reconstruction of a weapon. I don't think it's an actual weapon found, but it seems like food and jewelry and tools, it all came from things that lived in the water. There was good archaeological research done here. I guess a bulldozer went through here. Some jerk on a bulldozer plowed through some of the mounds, but it allowed archaeologists to do work on here, and they dated some early fire pits at 2,000 years old. So that doesn't mark when this place was started, but we know people were here burning fire pits 2,000 years ago. Now, one of the things that really surprised me about this is I was reading a paper and they showed a picture and they showed a cross section where they dug down about 5 feet, and the shells and the clay, it almost looked uniform. The shells almost looking like bricks in layers and in patterns, but it was pretty remarkable. They were evenly dispersed throughout the cross section of this mound here, this artificial island. And there was also artifacts from Poverty Point found here. And remember, Poverty Point is about 3,400 years old. And up on this mound right here, I believe, they found a trench with post holes indicating that there was a structure up on here, and they theorize a chief lived up on here. Now, if you don't think this is interesting enough already, basically an artificial island, mound, artificial harbor, concentric rings. Hey, wait a minute now. Just kidding. But if you think this didn't get any more interesting, well, let me show you something on Google Earth. You can kind of tell where the big 2 mounds are. There's one right here and one right here. And these rise up to maybe 30, 35 feet above the bay here. So this is really the highest point in all the area. And I think these people were astronomers. Now, going back to the imagery from 1994, the mound, the vegetation was obviously cleared for some reason, somehow. Look at these lines that are etched in these big mounds. Were they observing the stars with these? These look a little bit strange. I don't think I've seen these on mounds before. Were they astronomers? Well, this is a great clue. They were. These kind of lines in other parts of the world, people have theorized they were astronomers. But these big mounds with the lines on them, were they watching the stars? I really wonder about that, because that is fairly unique. Were these people possibly related to the Mayans or the Olmec? We know they were astronomers. But they say the Calusa were here for about 1,600 years. Who the Calusa were before that, where their origin came from, I really wonder. Why they built a man-made island? Well, they seem to be directly connected to the sea. They were not farmers at all. All their food and all their mythology seemed to come from the sea. But maybe they were astronomers. Maybe there's a lot we don't know. Hope you thought that was interesting. You all have. Very nice day.